I thought this would be a good topic, sort of as the first meeting of the year, to sort of set the stage for equipment and the kinds of equipment that you can use and why you might want to use a piece of equipment. As we said earlier, fun, new things to buy. And so I thought this would be a good topic. So what I thought I'd do is just sort of walk through things like cameras and lenses and tripods and bags and accessories and all those types of things, not to try to make recommendations on any one vendor over another, but to show what's out there, what's available. And I don't have everything, so hopefully other people might have some things that they can show as well. So jump in when you can. If I say something you disagree with, jump in. And if you want to add something, jump in. So I guess let's get started. So obviously the first thing is cameras. So without getting into brands of cameras, I thought we'd sort of just talk about types of cameras. And obviously the main ones are DSLRs, digital single reflex types cameras, mirrorless cameras, and phone cameras. So, the old saying, which camera do you like? Well, it's the one that you have with you. But I would say probably most people are using DSLRs, digital cameras. I don't think many people are using film anymore. I did run across somebody. I teach woodworking and have a class, woodcraft, once a month. And there was a student in my class a couple months ago that still does film. He said he still likes film. So I said, okay. But pixels are free. You can take a lot of pixels. So most people are doing digital. And a lot of people, as I said, are using a DSLR camera. Mirrorless cameras are sort of the new rage now, and they are smaller, typically smaller than the DSLRs. So they're smaller and lighter. Lenses that we'll talk about in a minute or two here are new, especially like I have Nikon. So there's a whole new line of lenses coming out from Nikon, and extremely high quality lenses. And I'm sure that's probably true for Canon and Sony and Fuji, the other cameras as well. But because of the configuration of not having a mirror and everything in the camera, they can change the how the cameras, how the lenses are mounted, get much better optics, much higher quality lenses. So that's one of the advantages of mirrorless cameras. Then there are phone cameras. Everybody probably has a camera with them 24/7 nowadays. And I'll tell you, I've got an iPhone 12, I guess it is. It takes beautiful pictures. And there are lighting conditions where it takes better pictures than my mirrorless camera does. One disadvantage is the size of the sensor, and therefore the size of the enlargement you might want to have to create from a phone camera. But if you're talking about small digital frames and 8x10 prints, things like that, they take beautiful pictures. So given all, and there's probably not a lot of difference among the brands for the average user. What the purpose of your pictures that we just sort of talked about, it sort of dictates the features that you're going to look for on these cameras. So if you're a sports and wildlife photographer, for example, you might want to look for focus tracking, high frame rates, high frames per second rates. Whereas if you're in landscape, you might have other interests. If you do photo stacking, you might want to find a camera that does photo stacking internally. HDR, built-in bracketing, things like that. So some of the specifics that of the type of picture you want to take dictates the kind of equipment that you're going to look for. But there are some generalities that you can make. One is RAW versus JPEG. That's a big difference between mirrorless and DSLRs versus phones. Although I guess some phones are starting to do some RAW. But if you have the choice and you can do post-processing, RAW is the way to shoot. So you want to make sure your camera can shoot in RAW. The other one is sort of the megapixel war. I think that's become very overblown and outdated. If you're creating, as I said, digital pictures for a digital frame or smaller, reasonable sized prints, you don't need 45 megapixels. So, but if you want to make large 16 by 20 or bigger prints, then maybe you do want to get a camera that has the higher number of megapixels. But I wouldn't let that, the number of megapixels, drive you in your decision for a purchase like it used to. There are other features now in these cameras that are more important, like focus tracking, or things like that. So don't get caught up in that. I mean, any new camera you buy nowadays is probably over 20 megapixels and it's very suitable for any kind of enlargement that you're going to make. And the other issue with very high megapixel cameras is you've got some big files that you're going to have to handle on your computer in post-processing. And maybe handling 1 or 2 images, 45 meg is not hard. But if you do a focus stack that's got 25 images, or you do a panorama that's got 20, 30 images, handling those size files can be a real issue on your computer. So not only do you have to think about your camera system, you might have to start thinking about your computer system and how do I support handling those size images in post-processing. Another issue is full frame cameras versus not full frame cameras, the DX type of cameras. And they're good and bad. Full frame, everybody sort of likes to gravitate towards full frame sensor size. But for macro, the non-full frame size actually can be better because you get higher empty magnification going that route as opposed to a full frame. So that's a consideration. Another one is having an LCD display on the back of the camera. It's almost become a must, in my opinion, especially to help do exposure. You've probably heard the term exposed to the right. What does that mean? Well, what that means is you want to expose to the highlights because you can always pull the shadows out in post-processing. But if you blow out the highlights, you're sort of out of luck. And what's the best way to do that? And that's by looking at a histogram after you take your picture. And so if you have an LCD display and don't use the histogram, I highly recommend you learn about using the histogram on your camera because it's an extremely nice way to set your exposure. The old days with film, you sort of had all to know the rules. Oh, I got to overexpose if it's snow or underexpose if it's a bear, a black bear. You don't have to worry about any of that anymore with histograms. You just look at the histogram and it'll show you what your exposure is, if you're blowing out the highlights or not. So I believe a LCD is extremely useful, as well as live view. Live view, I think, is becoming more and more important in terms of not only setting up your scene, but also in focus. Mirrorless cameras, what you see is what you get on the LCD. So you can really look at exposure, really look at your focus on the back of your camera, and not have to guess anymore. I've mentioned auto tracking, autofocus, all those types of things. If you're, as I said, if you're into sports, into wildlife, those may be your highest priority type of things. The new Nikon F9, I think in JPEG mode, one of the JPEG mode, where it does 150 frames a second. And I know in RAW mode, it can do 30 frames a second. Well, I don't need that because I don't take those kinds of pictures. So that's not high on my priority list. But for someone else, that might be a real driver of why I want to buy this camera versus a different camera. Let's see what else. High ISO. New cameras now can really go up into the higher ISO, 1,000, not unusual to shoot, 1,000, 2,000 ISO and get almost no noise. I mean, the new cameras are really good at that. I think Norm was showing me a picture. He was shooting at 10,000 ISO, I think he said. Let's see what else I have here. Manual versus auto modes. I mainly shoot manual, maybe sometimes auto in aperture priority. There's even a mode where I've used for some wildlife where you set your aperture, you set the shutter speed, and you let the ISO move automatically, and you can set on the camera what minimum shutter speed I want to have. Those types of parameters around each of the aperture, shutter speed, and ISO, and then you just shoot. You don't worry about exposure. The camera handles all that. But mainly I shoot manual. Other people may not, but I feel I have the most control. Again, I don't do a lot of fast movement things, so I get the most control in manual mode. So those are some of the things I wanted to mention about cameras. Anybody else? Anybody want to jump in and mention some things? Steve, unmute yourself.
Yeah, I want to go back to the megapixel wars for just a second. One other thing to consider is noise. The 45 megapixels on a full frame sensor are going to be, the pixels are going to be bigger than the equivalent number on a smaller sensor. The smaller the pixel, the less light it gathers, the noisier the image is going to be, especially at higher ISOs. For what I do, I prefer a smaller form size. A Nikon Z series at the largest. I also like my Olympus OMD EM5 with the 14 to 150, or the equivalent of a 28 to 300 in full frame terms. It's relatively light, a whole lot less conspicuous if I'm doing candids and don't necessarily want to be observed and become the center of the story myself. But sensor quality and processing quality in the newer mirrorless and digital SLRs are so much better that you don't need a whole lot of megapixels anymore. And the fewer you can get away with on any given size sensor, the better its light gathering capability and the less noise you're going to have.
A quick further point on that. I've been using for a number of years now the Nikon D850, and I love it. It's my favorite toy since I got a bicycle at 8 years old. But it's heavy and it's big, and so I've just ordered a Fujifilm viewfinder version of the XE4, and I haven't gotten it yet. Just for the smaller form factor, it's a APS-C, a crop frame sensor, and I wonder. I know that the jury is out, and there's controversy about whether the super resolution that Adobe's put out in similar products do any good at all. But I suspect they may. So a combination of better sensors, software like the super resolution, if it can be made to work usefully, really are ending the software wars. I mean, Sony's got a 60 meg sensor in a full frame. But what do you need that for? Holy mackerel. So yeah, I think that we're all headed toward a more convenient, easier to use, especially people who are older than most dirt as I am, a lighter, smaller form factor that will help us all take better pictures. Well, that was a conversation killer.
Now, excuse me, along that line, I have a GR3X, which I don't know if it's really small, as you can perhaps see, and it's a 24 megapixel, same size sensor as any of your other non full frame cameras. And it does remarkably well, and it sticks in my pocket. The one problem with it, or the major problem, is battery size. You know, it likes to eat up batteries, which is maybe not all that surprising given the overall size of the item. But it's certainly it's the camera that I have with me now, and it's no problem doing it. I can stick it in a shirt pocket or a pants pocket, and the caliber of photographs is really quite good. Enough about my Ricoh ad.
Do you find that you miss the viewfinder?
That's the other thing. You're right, because in bright sunlight, the back screen is sometimes very hard to see clearly. So in you know, somewhat dim light, or as long as you don't have bright light on the view on the screen, it's pretty good. And I wish it did have a viewfinder, but that's part of the form factor advantage. You don't have to deal with that in the size. And it only weighs, I think, 9 ounces or somewhere in there. So it's quite the nice little package.
I think the one other advantage to a viewfinder, I mean, aside from the bright sunlight question, is that I find it easier to hold the camera steady if I'm holding it up to my face like this and looking through the viewfinder than if I'm holding it out like this and trying to look at the screen on the back of the camera. So, you know, I'm close to Vernon being as old as dirt, and it's easier for me to keep the camera steady that way than if I'm holding it like this, trying to read the screen.
Fortunately, this does have some image stabilization in it, which helps. I mean, it's not as good as like the Olympus has, but it certainly helps in doing away with the shakes.
Jeff, I had a couple just additions to your list there, in that the 12 does shoot, the 12 iPhone does shoot RAW nowadays. And if you have your Photoshop Lightroom subscription, then you can process those RAW files very easily. And one of the new members also was, or attendees, also was talking about I think a point and shoot, and which you didn't have in your group. And then the other item is the bridge camera, which has a bigger lens, but it's all one non-interchangeable lens. And those do also shoot RAW.
Bob, that's a good point. I have the Sony RX10 Mark III, which has the equivalent of a 600-meter reach on the long end of the zoom, and only a 1-inch sensor, but it does incredibly well. I use that for a lot of my moonshots.
We have the same camera for my wife, uses the RX4.
Okay. All right, so we've talked about some cameras. Next logical thing would be lenses. So the big thing with lenses, obviously, is prime lenses versus zoom lenses. And I'm talking replaceable lenses here. Thank you for adding those other cameras. So I am talking about sort of interchangeable lenses, prime lenses versus zoom lenses. The older days, everybody said prime lenses were much sharper and really played down zooms, but I've always been a advocate of zoom lenses. Zoom lenses do make it easier not to have to carry around as many lenses, but there are certain specific lenses you might want to have prime for. So we'll show some examples here. So for the longest time, I would use this lens. You can sort of here's my camera, Nikon Z6. This is a zoom lens. You can sort of get an idea of the size of the lens. And it is a 28 to 300 lens. And it's called a kit lens. This is the lens that came with the camera. Sort of your general purpose across the board. I mean, it's very nice walking around and taking almost any kind of picture you want kind of lens, because it's wide angle all the way out to 300 millimeter. Kit lenses typically are not the highest quality lenses, and I've always sort of shrugged that off until recently. After I got my Z6, and I started to get a couple of the Z lenses, and I saw the difference in quality. I said, oh, I guess I really need to move up from this lens. But it's very hard to give up this lens, because I used to just use one lens for everything, just about, except for macro. So this is a nice general purpose zoom lens, but you can get prime lenses, and again, depending on what you're shooting, you may want to focus in on 2 or 3 different prime lenses. Portraiture is typically about an 80 to 100 millimeter lens. This lens is a 105 prime lens, 105 macro, or Nikon's term is micro lens. Extremely sharp lens. This is probably one of the sharpest lenses they've made. But it's a 105, ideally for macro shooting. So it's somewhat of a special purpose lens in that respect. And I would carry this around along with my other lenses. So the idea is you want to span sort of the range from wide angle to telephoto in some way. So, and then if you have special purpose, you would then focus in on specialty lenses for that. Macro lens, a PC, perspective correction type of lens, what have you. So I started to move into the Z lenses. I don't want to get name specific, but this one now is a 24 to 70. So I've got the lower range sort of covered now with this lens. It's a 24 to 70, and I've got an order if it ever comes, a 100 to 400 lens that'll cover sort of the upper range. And then you get into sort of the real longer lenses, like for wildlife and stuff. So here's a monster. This is a 200 to 500. And obviously, I wouldn't carry this around all day, but it serves a special purpose. Now, getting my 100 to 400 lens, I'll have to see if I really want to keep this, and if I need a lens like this. But you want to be able to cover the range, so you have that capability of taking the lenses. One of the other main considerations is what f-stop is a lens. It's somewhat tied to price here, because the lower the f-stop, meaning you get down to 2.8, 1.4, and really wide lenses are going to start costing a lot of money. So do you need the lower f-stop? And that's become an interesting question, because with in the lens and in the camera vibration reduction, you can actually hand hold cameras and lenses now much better than you could in the past in low light levels. So in some sense, you don't need the wide aperture for low light levels as much as you did before. However, if you're interested in depth of field, you may still want to get a lens that has a lower aperture, because it'll give you more depth of field. So as an example of this lens I've ordered, the 100 to 400 says it has 5.5 stops vibration reduction, which is quite a bit. So it's a f4, I think, 456, I think, lens. So those are some of the considerations. Along with lenses, you can do things like tele-extenders and let's see that. Tele-extenders and extension tubes to add focal length to your lenses. So these come apart. Okay, and you would put these on in between your body of your camera and the lens. Extension tube is basically a hollow tube. All it's doing is moving the lens further away from the sensor. The tele-extender actually has a lens in the tube, which gives you magnification as well. You'll see a 2x or a 4x kind of tele-extenders. The new one, or the better ones, I should say, have electronic connections so that you don't lose your automatic features of your camera and lens combination. So when you start buying these, you want to make sure that they do support the lens and cameras that you have, so that you don't lose those features. Close-up lenses, if you're into macro, you don't want to buy a dedicated macro lens. You can get close-up lenses that'll screw onto the front, or filter, I guess, sort of a cross between the two. Screws onto the front of your lens to give you that close-up. And also, you can get those types of snap-on lenses for phone cameras as well. So you can get adapters that'll clip on over your lens to give you a close-up, or change your focal length of your phone lenses. So that's sort of the kind of equipment I have. What do other people do? What do you want to add to that?
Jeff, it sounds like you raided my closet. I have a lot of the same Nikon lenses you do. I have the 28 to 300 on my D750.
Yes.
And I've been really happy with it. It's a great lens. I also have the 200 to 500 that I use for setting up a one in my backyard and photographing the birds on the fountain, in the fountain at the other end of my backyard.
It's a really
and by the way, if you put that lens on a crop sensor body, now you've got a 750 millimeter reach.
right.
I bought my Olympus OMD with a 14 to 150 lens. Since it's a 4/3 sensor, it's a 2x multiplication factor. Now I've got exactly the same perspective, 28 to 300, except in a much, much smaller frame. And the frame factor is so much smaller. And just to get the 28 to 300 millimeter reach with that Olympus body is a whole lot lighter and easier to carry than the 28 to 300 on a full frame body. And I did carry that 200 to 500 around on a D810 all day at the Brookfield Zoo outside of Chicago, and I won't do that again. Once was enough.
Not even a monopod?
Not even a monopod. Live and learn.
Yeah. On the Nikon lenses, Nikon, I understand, has threatened to put out a native mirrorless 24 to 120, which I think is that's what I've been using mostly on my D850. I think that is a great range.
If they came out with that for my Z6, I'd get it immediately.
They've threatened it, and it's a constant f4, supposedly.
Okay. I didn't mention this. If you do get a longer telephoto lens, they typically have a foot like this so that you can mount this onto your tripod rather than having this huge lens hanging off your camera that's not on your tripod. And what's nice is that you can loosen it and rotate it for horizontal, vertical, or in between as well. So don't be surprised if you do get a telephoto lens, it may have this foot on it. Okay. All right, well, next thing that I have here is tripods, and talking about stability. I know there's sort of a mix between people that like to use tripods and don't, especially now with the noise, with the vibration reduction and everything. But I think if you talk to a lot of serious photographers, serious amateurs and professionals, they like to use tripods. Not only for the sharpness, the extra little bit of sharpness that you're going to get in image quality, but just to help you compose your scene. You can compose, you can sort of look around the frame, you can sort of sit back, is this, and take your time when it's on the tripod. So I think it gives you both quality as well as quality of image, as well as aesthetic improvement potentially of your image, because you're not holding it bent over and rushing to take your picture. Size and material are probably the two things that sort of jump to the forefront when you talk about tripods. I have a tripod, obviously a lot of it depends on your height, but I have a tripod here that let me extend it up. If you can sort of see this, but it's fully extended. It's about 2 feet taller than I am, and I'm 6'4". So, and why? So why would you want one that big? It's not so that you can stand on the ladder and look through it. What it comes in handy is if you're along the edge of a road and you got a nice, or a cliff and you've got a barrier, you can extend one leg way down, shorten up the other ones. You got nice stability on your tripod. So these longer legs gives you a much better way to set up your tripod and keep it stable. You're not going to set it up on the edge of a cliff, balance it there, start to take your picture and have it fall over, and you've now lost a nice camera and tripod. So size is somewhat dictated by your height, obviously, somewhat dictated by, I think you want a bigger tripod because it helps you set it up. There are small sort of travel tripods. So here is a little travel tripod that I can stick in my bag, and it folds up. It's very light, as well as compact. That's probably, I don't know, 18 inches or so, maybe a little bit more. But it then, folds up like this. And, has a center bar, has legs extended out. So it becomes a decent sized tripod, even though it's small. It folds up nice and small and light. This is, I don't think, a tripod that you would use every day but for travel, if you're going on a trip, very nice tripod to have. So you want to look for these travel tripods that will go into your bag nice and easily, or go on your backpack nice and easily. So they come in a variety of sizes, and the two main materials obviously are aluminum and carbon fiber. Carbon fiber is very nice because it's light and sturdy, and also light. Again, if you're driving somewhere, you get out of your car, set up, take a picture. not much difference. I mean, you can go with aluminum and they are cheaper than carbon fiber. If you're going to do any kind of travel, any kind of hiking, anytime you're going to want to carry it for any kind of a distance, carbon fiber is the way to go. And this is a huge, big, nice, big tripod, and it's really light, relatively light. So carbon fiber is nice. This is another carbon fiber tripod that most tripods just are vertical. Like this one, do this quick, lets you go up and down vertically, but you can also go out at an angle, which is nice. If you're setting up for a macro kind of a picture, you can set up, get over your subject, and so you can shoot down a lot easier, etc. So this is a nice, Vanguard is the name of the company that makes a tripod like this. Very sturdy, and it's carbon fiber as well, so it's very light. Very nice tripod. Okay, so you also have monopods. Somebody mentioned a monopod. So here's a monopod, folds up, nice, extends out. So if you are in a situation where you can't use a tripod, but you want some type of stability, you can use a monopod and reduce your vibration in this direction. You do have a lot of freedom in moving it around. I realized that I didn't bring it in, but you can use things like bean bags. You can buy bean bags, fill them up with beans or sand or whatever you want to use, and use those on your window on looking out the car at wildlife. Rest your camera on a bean bag. So there's different ways to support the camera. Tripod, monopod, bean bags. The other issue is what kind of head do you use? And this is really, I mean, for still photography, unlike video photography, you might use a different type of head. This is a ball head, probably the most common type of head that's used, where you mount the camera on the head and rotate it around. You can go down like this, up. There's one that's this tripod has one. So a normal ball head, if you look close, look at a normal ball head, you loosen it up and it can rotate around. And if you want to, cat is now laying on my desk. It's been knocking over something. If you want to go, this is great for horizontal. If you want to go vertical, there's a little U shape that's cut here. You got to go down into that, and now you can turn it and go vertical. Okay. There is a head looks like this, called the ultimate ball head, that you can see is open in the front. So now when you loosen this up, you have a lot of freedom in terms of using the ball head. This is a very nice nice feature, because now you're not locked into, well, where's that little U shape? Get into that and you have to swing around. You have a lot of flexibility with this type of ball head. And the other type of head is a fluid head. So unlike a ball head, this is basically a fixed head, but you can go up and down like this. It can rotate sideways like this, and there's a fluid in there that dampens the movement. These are pretty much are popular for video photography, because you can pan and get a very smooth pan when you're doing video. But is very nice for landscape as well, because you can set this up, you level your tripod, you level the head, and now if you need to move to get a different angle or something, you're not bouncing around like you do with a ball head, and your horizon stays nice and level as well. The other nice thing about, well, you can mount your camera on here and set it up so that you can let go of your camera and it's going to stay in position. Right? So if I put it back like this, it's not going to fall forward like with a ball head. So it gives you a nice way to keep everything really stable. And so I think somebody mentioned Hudson Henry. He's a big advocate of a fluid head for everything. I'm sort of not there yet because of macro photography, like going outside taking pictures of flowers or something, but for close-ups. But this has become a very nice feature. Very good for panoramas too, because there you want to keep a nice, even, steady rotation. Okay, so panorama heads. So you might see somebody has a head that looks like this and mounts onto your camera, your tripod like this. And it allows you to do sort of advanced panoramas. Your camera mounts right here. What all this does basically is it lets you move back and forth this way to set your lens at what's called the no parallax point. So when you rotate like this to do a panorama, or you rotate like this to go multiple rows, you're rotating around the no parallax point and you don't have parallax in your pictures. So it's much for panoramas, it's obviously very good. You don't want to have parallax in a panorama. So, so you can ride panorama heads. What else? Oh, L brackets. So what's nice about an L bracket, what an L bracket is that it's a bracket that screws in the bottom of your camera. I don't know if you can see it, but it gives you, and it's called an L bracket because it comes over here and it comes up the side of your camera. And what that does is that lets you have your tripod here, and I can mount my camera in there for horizontal picture like that. Okay, but if I want to go vertical, I can just pop it out, rotate it like this, and now I'm going vertical. So it's a very easy way to go between horizontal and vertical. Instead of trying like the ball head, find that little U, rotate, hang off the side of the tripod, all that kind of stuff. But here you're always centered over your tripod. So L brackets, if you're not familiar with L brackets, are a very, very useful piece of accessory to have. Let's see. So, oh, and the last one is, not to forget our phone guy people, is a phone head, right? So you can mount this on your tripod. It's got Arca Swiss mount on the bottom. Pop your phone in there, lock it down, either vertical. You can rotate this. You can go vertical, horizontal, whatever you want. And it's a very nice way to keep your phone on a tripod as well. Okay, that's what I have. Comments or any additions? No. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Jeff?
Good, covered that one, huh? Oh, okay. So the next section I had were bags. Right, so you got all this equipment, right? You're going out now and buying all the stuff I showed you. So now you got to carry it, right? So how are you going to carry all this stuff? Well, there's a never-ending battle trying to determine what's the best bag. And a lot of it obviously depends on, again, what you're going to do, how far you going away from your car, all that kind of stuff. So in the back here, you see this yellow bag. That's a Pelican bag that's really built for travel. So Norman and I went on a trip recently, and so this is a hard case bag. It has dividers for all your equipment. One of the better hard cases, and it fits. It's sized so it fits in the overhead compartment in an airplane. It's got, you can lock it. Extremely nice. You got not only storage here, you got stuff up in this area here. So if you're planning a trip, you want to carry your equipment or use it at home to store a lot of your equipment, it's a wonderful way to do that. I started to store things in that at home. Put it in there, take out what I need when I need it. All right, so then you get to the bags in the field. Well, the sort of big traditional one looks like this. You know, so you've got a bag, you know, all compartments in it, multiple compartments up front, put all kinds of stuff in there, right? All kinds of goodies, and a lot of zippers, backpack, straps, strap for around your waist and everything. So I used this for a long time until old age starts to creep up. And all of a sudden my shoulders don't like to go back like this as much as they used to put this thing on. So I slowly moved away from this, looking for other alternatives. So one of them is like this. It's called a messenger bag. So this is a bag that goes over your shoulder like this. Right? It has a variety of compartments on the inside and the outside, and you just put it over your shoulder like this, and you carry it around. I think there actually is a strap that you put around your waist. I don't think I've ever used it, but this is nice to carry out in the field. Take it on, put it down, take things out. So this is called a messenger bag, and they come in different sizes as well. A little bit much for a sort of an afternoon hike. So I also picked up one of these, which is that is a fanny pack kind of a bag. So it goes around the waist, and it has a nice compartment here for another lens, little accessories, filters, things like that. So it's not as big as those other bags. So if I'm just taking my camera with a lens, and maybe I want to take the 105 to take some macros maybe, or close-ups, I've got a bag like this. Okay. Then sort of my current favorite is camera vest like this, and zips up. It's got some nice pockets here where I can take my my 105 and just stick it in the pocket here, wherever it is here quickly. Here we go. Pop that in there. I can do another one here. It's got a big pocket in the back. I can put filters. I can put my filter pack in here, all this kind of stuff. And what I like about it is the weight is distributed all across your body, right? All across your shoulders, and you literally can wear this all day without worrying about it. Have done it. So this is sort of my current favorite to use when I go out shooting. So I think that's all right. That's what I had about bags. Anybody else have their favorite bag that they like to use? Jeez. How are we doing on time? About 20 minutes. Okay, well, moving right along. All right, so then there you got accessories, and there are gazillion kinds of accessories. So let me just hit on a few. And I'm sure you all have your favorite kinds of accessories. So we talked a little bit before the meeting even started about filters. So here's a nice filter pack. Excuse me. I use the screw-on type filters. We talked about these magnetic filters. Norm has a system called CASE, K-A-S-E, that B&H sells, and Hudson is a distributor for. You can get them from Hudson as well. But they're magnetic, and with various step-up rings and everything, you can buy one size filter and use it on all your cameras, right? And what's nice is that they just snap into place like that. You don't have to screw them on. You don't have to do any of that kind of stuff. You want to change from an ND filter to a circular polarized filter, you just pop that guy off, pop that guy on, and you're good to go. You can stack these if you have multiple ND filters. So this is actually more of a homegrown system. The CASE system that B&H sells, it comes with a number of filters, rings, all that, and it's about $500 for the system. Okay, I gulped when I heard the price. So I looked around, and B&H actually sells magnetic adapters for filters and for cameras. So I put together a system for about $200. And so you have a variety of things, but you want filters, mainly nowadays ND filters. In case you want to go to a slower shutter speed, maybe you're going to do waterfalls, something like that. And circular polarizing filters for glare, reflections, things like that. As Ellen was mentioning, people are shying away now from graduated ND filters and some of the specialty, the starlight kind of filters where you can get a star pattern and all those kind of things. You guys can do that all in post-processing now. You don't need to carry all these filters and put all these different filters on like we used to have to do. So you do want to have filters for those situations, especially ND filters and circular polarizing filters.
Jeff,
Yes.
one other reason is I either have a UV filter or what they call a protective filter.
Yep.
On all of my lenses to protect the lens.
Yeah, that's what I had down here next was
Oh,
that.
okay.
And people, I mean, there's a controversy about that because it's a piece of glass in front of your lens. I have never found that to be an issue. And I think, especially if you're not going to use a lens hood, you should have a UV filter on to protect your lens. I've never noticed a difference in the quality of the picture. And, I'd rather not have a tree branch swipe across the front of my $2,000 lens. I'd much rather place a $100 filter. So that's me. That's my personal view. But yes, you can buy these. They're either UV, they're called UV filters, daylight, or protection filters. I mentioned them. No, okay. Another thing with filters is make sure you have a set of these. You know what these are? These are filter wrenches. Right? It's nothing like getting your filter stuck in the front of your lens and not be able to get it off. So you put this around the lens, you put this around the filter, just give it a twist, and now take off your filter. So if you have screw-on filters, make sure you have a pair of these filter wrenches. Let's see.
Hey, Jeff,
And-
you can
Go ahead.
do that with a jar opener.
Well, yes and no.
And
The problem with the
you
jar
gotta-
opener is you
Yeah.
can't grab the lens part, especially with the focus rings getting close to the end. But you're right. I mean, that is one
Yep.
thing to try.
You got a hand up there, I believe.
What? Oh, okay. Go ahead, Michael. Is that you? You unmute yourself. I think, Mike. There you go.
Hi, sorry about that.
Go ahead.
So, Canon has a ring adapter now where you can put the filter in the ring adapter and it goes in the back of your lens near the mirror. So that's another thing that's out there now. Well, it goes inside the camera. I'll have to find it and share it with y'all.
Yeah, I've just read about those. I haven't seen those, but yes. Yeah.
So I just wanted to share that.
Yep. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Let's see. Going along with our lenses and our filters is how do you clean them? How do you keep your camera clean? Well, so what I use, basically three things. So for my lenses, out in the field, you want to brush off dirt and stuff. You get yourself a little pen brush like this, so that when you push on it, out pops the bristles here. And you just brush off. The little brush brushes off the stuff off your lens. To get in, clean your sensor. Some cameras will vibrate the sensor, but you should get sort of something like this. That's an air blower. Now, don't blow on it because you're going to blow moisture. Use something like this. Open up your camera, and you can blow out the air off the sensor. And if you have some dirt or things on the lens, I use these. If you can see these, it's Zeiss lens wipes. If you know nothing out of this whole talk, get these, okay? And the reason for that is the old days, you used to have a little jar of liquid lens cleaner and you put it in the lens, you took lens paper and you wiped it like this. You always had streaks, right? I'll tell you, these Zeiss lens wipes, we use them for our eyeglasses as well. You get 0 streaks, and this stuff is wonderful. So if you get nothing else out of this whole talk, buy these lens wipes.
Are you saying Zeiss, like
Zeiss.
Z? Spell it.
Z-E-I-S-S.
Z.
Z is in zebra, E-I-S is in Sam, S is in Sam. Like the lens.
Okay.
You get those at Walmart.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And they're
Okay,
wonderful. They're wonderful. Okay.
thank you.
All right. Let's see what else we got here. I'm just randomly going down my list of accessories. Cat just knocked over something. I don't know if you've ever seen one of these. This is called a hoodman. And what this is, it's a loop, little magnifier up here. And they sell different size, this is called shroud, I guess, for depending on the size of your LCD in the back of your camera. But what you do is, where I put my camera? You take this, and you want to look at the picture that's on the back of your camera, look, see if it's in focus, things like that. You just pop that like that, and you look in here. And all the glare, all the sunlight, everything around you all of a sudden disappears. You've got an enlarged view of what's on the back of your camera. And you just hang it around your neck, carry it all around. You take a picture, you can zoom in, and look at a close-up of the picture on your screen, and look in there and say, yep, it's in focus or not in focus, all that kind of stuff. So it's a wonderful accessory to have. It's called a Hoodman, H-O-O-D-M-A-N. And you can get adjustable. It adjusts for your glasses or whatever your eyesight is. And it has different size shrouds here to cover your size of your screen. Okay. Very nice to use.
Jeff, when you get us, when you're at a point, open point, I have share screen if I can to show you something
Sure.
that I use.
Okay, hold on. Okay, try sharing your screen. It work? There you go.
This. Ooh, can you see a screen?
Yep, yes.
Okay,
Some pictures.
yeah, but this is something that you didn't include for us seniors that you'll be using someday, maybe, Jeff.
I like that.
That's nice.
It's an aluminum bench that I kept bending my garden benches. And so this is rated for 300 pounds. And it's about 40 inches long, and you can slide along. It's got no protrusions other than on each end to interfere with the tripod legs. And it folds up, each end folds in, and it slips right in the car. So for
Nice.
those that are not steady on their feet, or I saw someone mention about hands, it's that covers that that area where you're able to you're not going to carry it on, take it on a whole hike, but you would if you're waiting for a sunrise or for a landscape, or in my case, you can see I do flowers with it. And the tripod, one of the things that Jeff didn't mention on is there's two different types on the legs. Is either there's a clip like this has right here, or the turn thing. And so you might want to just try both to see which version you might like. I used to have the turn knuckles, and then I've gone to the clip and find them to be faster and better. Another type of tripod head that Jeff didn't mention, but it's called a gimbal. And that is where your camera is mounted on it. And this is my 200 to 500, just like Jeff has. And with the foot, and that sits on there, and this swings this way. So you can have it level, or you can either go up or down with it. And it also, if you you can balance the lens by having that foot front or back, that will balance. So it doesn't move a lot. And I put on the without the lens, without the foot, I put I have that same Arca Swiss mount on the bottom of my camera, so I can put the camera in there. So the reason I just put some of these other quick pictures in is that gimbal head allows you to take that camera and the lens and go up and down, and you can't do other stuff. You can't really get a good straight line like that, should you want to do that. Those are Christmas lights. The other benefit of the 200 to 500 that Jeff didn't quite mention is that it gives you a much softer background. Bokeh is what the term is. Now, granted, these are dead flowers, but what else are you going to get in November? So that just gives you a lot more flexibility. In this case, I took some chives in the summertime and went up and down. I'm doing a lot more abstract and different stuff like that. And then, like I said, this was an old flower type of thing, but I was going, you can go ahead and using the new Lightroom, which I don't know if he's going to get into software or not, but if you're not using the new Lightroom masking features, you definitely should. And we'll talk about that some other time. Stop share.
Thank you, Bob.
Yep.
Since it's getting a little bit late, let me just hit just a couple things just briefly, and then I'll stop. It's just some sort of random kind of other things you can have. One of them is a little LED light. They come in different size panels. I won't point it at you, but you can see LEDs. They come all sizes. You come in different color temperatures. I can adjust the range of color temperature a little bit with this one, but some of them have a whole spectrum of colors. Some of them are very small, so you can get very pointed. So you have this in your pocket. You're out out near a little fill light or something. I don't use flash anymore. I use little LED lights like this, and they're inexpensive. You can get them, as I said, different sizes. Little reflectors you carry around in my vest. You can get these in all different sizes as well. You know, they just pop open. If you need a reflector, some type of reflector, silver and gold, or sort of the more translucent type, and they just fold right back up and just pop them back into the little bag. And as I said, we can get them all different sizes. I'll mention just two other things. One is a shutter release for the intervalometer. So obviously you should have, especially when you're mounted on a tripod, you don't want to necessarily push the shutter and create vibrations. You can set up a time release in your camera, obviously, or you get some type of shutter release. You can get them all they do is just strip the shutter, or you can get them such that you can program them to do time lapse, to do a wide variety of features. So this is a wireless one. This mounts on the camera. We got a little remote, and I can fire the camera or set up time lapse or other types of remote collection of images. I've got the one that I use mostly, find the camera, is one by a company called Fluography. They're a German company, I believe it is. And that one, it's too small for you to see, but it plugs into the I think it's the USB port. It must be the USB port on the camera underneath my my L bracket. So I don't even know it's there. And it wirelessly connects to my phone, and I can it has all kinds of functions, just like this one does, all from my smartphone. So it's very small. You just leave it in there all the time and just use it whenever I need to. Right now, it's only for Nikon and Canon, but they're coming out with other cameras as well. Really neat, because you just put it on and forget about it. You don't have to mount. Normally these things, this would mount up here with the wires, and it's just a real pain. This one, you just put it on and just forget about it.
Jack,
Then,
what's that sort of, what cost would something like that be?
this one is like $80, something like that.
Is that the one
I
that,
don't
that
remember.
connects with the iPhone, or is that something else?
No,
Is that
so
what-
then the other one, this Fluography one, is like $150, $160, something like that.
I think it's $200.
Is it? Yeah, I
I
don't
think
remember.
so.
But
Okay,
it
so it's-
sounds like it's very, very useful, very flexible.
It's very flexible. As I said, you can do time lapse, and it supports all the same fun. It's an intervalometer basically, but it is. I mean, it's
There is another software that I know it's available for Nikon. I think it's also available for Canon, called SnapBridge, and that's actually free. And that will also operate from your iPhone. It's not as useful as the Fluography, but it's got a lot of the same features.
Okay, well, I think I'll look into that. Thank you.
Yeah, now the one caveat, right, is that it requires your phone or your camera to have Bluetooth capability, right? So if you have an older camera that does not have Bluetooth, then they won't talk to it.
Sure.
And Canon has something called Canon Connect that can connect to your phone and your laptop to
Oh,
take pictures using your phone or your laptop.
Wow.
over the Wi-Fi.
Okay. That's good to know.
Okay, last thing, I guess I had sitting next to the LED light was a little headlamp if you're out at night, want to take pictures. Nothing like wanting to do that hands-free, so you can get a little headlight that goes over your head like that. Very aesthetically pleasing. But you know, you can get them and it has a white light in it like that, or it has a red light, so you don't lose your night vision. So you would use the red light. It's hard to see. So I think it's what 8:30. So that's what I was trying to shoot for. Extra batteries, extra memory cards, those type of things. So I think that's all I had. It was a race to get it done. But anybody else have things that they have that I didn't mention? Anybody? All right, well, I turn it back to you, Norm.